Everybody, happy Monday. This is Overpass Live. I'm Eric. I make apps. This is the weekly live stream where we just hang out and talk about whatever we want to talk about. And for the longest time, I would do it every week. And the last few weeks, I've been skipping a week here and there. Last week, I had this really bad cold. And sometimes just things come up, personal things I got to deal with. But yeah, the last few weeks, I've just had this really nasty cold. Not COVID. I mean, I've been testing myself and everything. Not, COVID or anything like that. But I just had this cold and everything like that. So, I feel a lot better today. Although I might have a coughing fit. If I have a coughing fit, apologies about that. So what have I been struggling with? I've been struggling with so many things lately. I mean, I've been working on some contract work. I hired a new developer about 6 weeks ago who's been working on a project for me. And I thought as an ongoing basis, okay, well, finally, I need to hire a full-time developer because I've had him in the past and it just doesn't work out. And I think, I think sometimes I'm a bit more strict with developers than I am with designers or social media people because I'm like, a developer, I kind of know what to expect from them and I know what they should be doing. I know when they're slacking off. And I don't think it's working out with this guy. Oh my God. So I've been struggling with that all day over the last few weeks. There's always, I'm tempted to just go on about it because, it's kind of one of these things where sometimes it's so hard to find good people. And everybody says, well, that's because you're not paying enough. And now I think, well, this time I thought I'm going to really, really splurge a bit and get, pay a lot for somebody. And, oh my God, it's just difficult. So, and then also I've been struggling a lot with Flutter today, just doing a lot of stuff with okay, I'm just going to, start a new project. And, you always got these issues with, Xcode and the slow Firebase Flutter building and everything like that. Oh my God! Sometimes software development just seems so difficult, and it's one of those things. Just being a professional and doing all that kind of stuff, and a professional thing is thing. So oh God, there's so much I want to have a rant about today, but we'll get into all of it. And in terms of the apps are doing okay. No, actually. All right, we'll go into that. First, let's see who's here, everybody. And if you let me know if you guys can hear me. Excuse me. There's the coughing. MD say, hey, Eric, welcome back. Thank you very much. I started learning Flutter based on your recommendation, but I'm finding setter and reading user preference to be very complicated. The use of future seems to be not as simple as promises in ES6. I have to declare the future data types. That you cannot cast to a non-future types. Yeah, that's one of those things. It's really weird because you got Flutter and Flutter 2. It's just something that just driving me crazy lately too. So you got so much documentation on Flutter 1 where they didn't have null safety, and the null safety kind of just adds a whole bunch of new complexity to it. And really, it's like, if you upgrade your pubspec.yaml to 2.12 to 3, whatever, then you get all of a sudden you get all these red underlines because things just aren't working anymore. You have to go through all the code and set all that, and you have to declare late bindings on the future preferences and stuff like that. But I mean, when it comes to futures and streams, you have to use those future builders, and I know what you're saying. You got, there's a lot of that kind of stuff in there where this is why the future builder is important. The future builder or the stream builder, or future builder really, so you can have that circular loading bar while you're loading up those futures and everything like that. So when that comes back, check to see if it has data and then display it. So in some ways, I think it's more elegant to have the future there. That just rather than just display something that's blank and then so you know whether or not something's there. But there's other times where just you're right. You want to have something a little bit more flexible than that coming back. Alternatively, you could always just bring everything back as an object and then try to get everything that way. But you really want to have those model classes. I don't know if you guys ever use this. Like if I'm doing, there's so many different websites out there that you can use convert JSON into either convert JSON into Dart models or into C# models or whatever. Just paste it in there. It'll create all the models for you. Those are like really, really useful. The JSON to Dart type stuff. Not so much when you're dealing with the Firestore database because it's, I don't know if there's a really easy way non-programmatically. I mean, you could write some code to export JSON into export JSON, or export a Firebase document into JSON, but and then take that and put it in one of these tools and generate the model. But I kind of would like to do that without having to write the code first to get to that point. But let's see, Theo Taylor, it's been a while, but in the house. Hey, how's it going, Theo? Let's see, Joe's here. Joe says, Eric, what do you use for image storage in your apps? Do you use anything like Cloudflare, CDN, or Google Cloud Storage? Now, usually, if it depends on what it is. So, like if it's a Firebase, if it's a Firebase application, I'll just use Firebase storage. It's just easier to keep it in one place. If it's something that's external, like if I'm actually writing like a Node.js thing in Heroku or something like that, then usually I'll use an Amazon S3 bucket, right? Because you do anything. You use Azure Cloud Storage. You could use like something like Cloudways or a CDN. I guess it depends on whether or not it's going to be, if it's going to be something that the user can update themselves, like they're going to write to something, then yeah, I would use something like a storage bucket or some sort of cloud infrastructure, like I said, Firebase storage, Azure storage buckets, but my preference has always been an Amazon S3 bucket, just because it's cheaper to host. Now, if you're going to have something which is not user writable, then my preference is just to leave it in the application, just put it into the assets or wherever as a resource within the application. So at least that way you don't have to worry about internet connectivity or anything like that. But if I have to do something that's external, yeah, I have things all over the place. I know I probably should consolidate it, but it's the Firebase storage has always been a bit more expensive than an Amazon S3 bucket. I don't know if that's still the case, but like a few years ago when I was doing it, it was. So I was using S3 just because it was a lot cheaper. But sometimes you're just like, oh, you know what? If we tie it in with the if it's a Firebase application, we're using Firestore for the database, Firebase authentication, everything else. It kind of seems stupid to keep it someplace else, so keep it there. For the most part, I don't really worry about the authentication on that point. Like, just to like restrict, because I think you could restrict the storage bucket, Firebase storage based on authentication too. But it's something I don't typically worry about. If somebody gets access to those images, I don't have anything that's really like too secure there. But yeah, let's see. Matthew Creek. Hey, Matthew, how's it going? I got my first 1-year sub on my iOS version recently. Nice. Great. Now you're on the hook. Now, like, if he's the only sub you have, see, now you get more subs. Otherwise, you'll be that one subscription, and you'll be like, have to keep the thing going for him. But that's congratulations. Yusuf, hey, how's it going? How you doing? I'm sitting down today. I don't know if you guys noticed. I'm just thought, to be a bit more chill, a bit more relaxed. I've had one of those days. I've had one of those days when like nothing works. Like I spent the whole day just on forums trying to get some stupid Firebase Flutter integration working, which should work, and I'm getting some weird Xcode error saying that I'm going through, and the whole day seems like I've been deleting the pod file, deintegrating the pod file, upgrading the pub spec, dealing with conflicts with certain libraries here and there. It's just like the whole day where it's just like, it's like when you have like a day where you start off going, okay, that's it, I'm going to focus completely on this. And 6 hours later, you've gotten nowhere except like redoing the same thing over and over and over again. And you got some idiot on some forum who says, all you need to do is delete the such and such and then delete this and then restore it. And you're like, you do that doesn't work. Do something else, doesn't work. One of those days. So that's why I'm just sitting down and chilling out. I'm sure you guys have all had days like that. If you haven't, then maybe it's just me. Kevin, hey Kevin, how's it going? Thanks for the Thanksgiving email that you sent through. Solanto Apps, good evening, Solanto Apps. Let's see. Rohit says, love from India. Hey, thanks, Rohit. Appreciate it. Let's see. Mr. Noob. Hello, Mr. Noob. Mr. Noob, how was your AdMob earnings during the Thanksgiving week? I haven't even looked at it. Let's have a look. I'm going to have a look at my daily revenue report. because I can't. That's one of those things about the AdMob stuff. I can't like show you my RPMs and stuff like that because otherwise you get my AdMob removed. Oh, hang on a second. And I'll show you my screen here in a second. Google Drive. Oh yeah. So one of the big things I had was I have a client that we had trouble setting up the Google Play app. So I was like complaining to Google Play about some problems that we're having, and then all of a sudden, all of my apps got removed. All of my apps got removed like within like a 2-day span. Not rejected, just removed because I had the word free in the title of some of them. So it was one of these things where I'm just playing this kind of why all of a sudden, like why after I have this like little argument with the support person I get this. It was just a bit too convenient. So I'm going through Google Play and changing all the titles on my applications and everything like that. Oh god, pain. So here, let me show you my my daily revenue report. So this is back to January. Go back to November. No, I should check this every day. I used to check this every day, but now I don't. So yeah, over the Thanksgiving, which was what, the 26th, I think. Well, it's 1194, 1294. So it seems to be going up, and it usually does on the run up to Christmas. So if I look at like say compared to August, I mean we were like talking about like 10, and I've no new applications out. So you can see like my revenue has actually gone up. And I don't think my impressions have gone up. I think it's more just the RPMs go up because more people are paying for advertising. So yeah, so for the month, I used to have totals on this. So yeah, my revenue for the month was 463, which is 433.63, which if we compare it to like the beginning of the year, it's like really low. But one of the things is that my big iOS application has not been upgraded for the new iOS 15 ad placements and everything. So that could be one of the reasons why. But yeah, I mean it's definitely on an upward climb. What I should do is put a chart in here so you can see what it is. And so you can see my in-app purchases for Android have they're very sporadic now. iOS in-app purchases still doing pretty good. I mean, we're not talking, groundbreaking. If we look at, compare this to the daily revenue from a few years ago, it's really embarrassingly low. But I've just been focusing so much on client stuff and dealing with some of the issues that I have that I'm kind of neglecting my own applications. So one of the things that I've done this week is I've been trying to rewrite some of my Corona games in Flutter Flame. So Flame being the game engine for Flutter. And I tell you what, at first I thought this is gonna be perfect because it's Flutter. I could bring it into do something that a language that I like using, and they have this game framework, which I suppose I could write my own loops and my own stuff. But I thought, no, this would be perfect. But it's one of these things where the language has changed so much, where tutorials from just like a few months ago are already out of date. So it's really difficult to find like the information, like so much stuff that you're following examples and it doesn't work because no, in the latest version they just changed everything so much that something doesn't work. That infuriates me. We're getting to the point now where, we talk about this a lot, where frameworks they're changing so quickly that it's hard to keep up with it. You have to you either go and as a developer, I hate using an older framework. I don't want to use something that's like 3 or 4 versions ago. I'd rather use the latest thing. So like with Flutter, for example, using null safety, I want to use Flutter 2. I want to use the latest stuff, so that way we use Flutter Web, everything like that. But then a lot of the examples we have don't use null safety, and maybe I should just delve in to figure out like all the things I need to change for that. And usually it's not that bad, but I don't know. Let's see. Rohit says, I'm a back-end dev. Want to go into app developer on the side. I'm looking for creating a simple wallpaper app with Lambda/API gateway/S3. Okay, cool. So Lambda, we're talking about Lambda being the Amazon Heroku version thing, right? Cool. But why a wallpaper app? It seems like there's so many wallpaper apps. And if you're like a server developer, surely you could do something a lot cooler than that. I mean, a wallpaper app doesn't have any authentication, doesn't have any server storage, doesn't have anything like that. Just, it's a wallpaper app. And you're putting something out there where there's so much competition out there. Like, I kind of get what like one of the things that like as a developer, a lot of times when we do our first application, we think, I'll do a to-do list, right? Because I know there's other to-do lists out there, but now I'll make a really, really good one. And the thing is, there's so many to-do lists, like so much stuff out there. But no, I mean, the best of luck to you, Rohit. But I would think about, I mean, if you just want to get the practice done, yeah, definitely get the practice done. But you're a server developer. Like, what can you do that the purely client developer can't do, right? You've got these skills that are, a bit more advanced, and then you want to. It's like you're trying to go to something that's less advanced. If you did focus more on stuff that's server based, you have a lot more processing power. You have a lot more user customization, stuff like that. Let's see. Joe says, thanks. Users won't be able to write, and unfortunately, I have close to 800 images, so I can't keep them in the resource folder because the size is too big. Actually, that makes sense. No, that does. Like that I usually, yeah, if you have like that many, yeah, you're right. You probably should put them, like, store them externally. Like, I have an application that has lots of videos in it, and that's something I'm not going to put in the application because then it would be gigabytes in size, and who wants to download that? So, oh, thanks for the thumbs up, everybody, by the way, who's done that. I just saw the thumbs up go up. Let's see. Rohit says, I've been writing a scraping script in Python. Lambda's external lib support is library support is weird. Well, yeah, but Lambda, you're pretty much just writing a REST API with that, wouldn't you? Like, there's a lot of stuff that, yeah, I mean, when I think about using Lambda, and correct me if I'm wrong, because there's so many stuff, like, it's basically where you can just host an application and push it to the cloud. You don't have to worry about setting up a server or anything else. Kind of the same way that Heroku works, or I was gonna say Firebase, but not really. Like you have your Node.js libraries and everything running, straight there, and you just write the code. And for that, I would think you have your client, and you have your API. And this is something when I talk to developers, even when I talk to clients, a lot of times we're talking about, like, would Heroku support this application? Or they'll talk about, like, could I use Node.js in this application? It's like, well, no, because the server is always, like, the server is one thing. You got that big leap across the internet in terms of the communication, even if you're using like a HTTPS or whatever. But no matter how secure it is, you've got one thing that speaks this one language and one thing that speaks another language, and they don't necessarily have to mix. Conversation I was having with somebody a few weeks ago, where he was talking about working with a developer who uses Python, and he says, would you be able to do an app with Python, because he's more of a server developer? And I was like, well, I really don't know if there's any Python client frameworks. We talk about this a lot, and I think there might be a few, but I don't really come across them very much. But a lot of that stuff, if it's not on the server, you're still building that REST API in terms of, like, what's that API? What are those endpoints going to look like? It doesn't have to be REST, but you're building an API, something that communicates with it, and the server speaks one language and the mobile application speaks a different language, but it's the data transfer between the two, and that's what's important. Are you passing the right data back and forth? You're not passing too much data back and forth, all that kind of stuff. You never have a thing where you say, like, I want to do an app. Like, again, one of the things that has confused people was when people ask you, can I have a MySQL on this application? I have a MySQL database. Can I make an app out of it? I said, well, yeah, you could, but you still have to write the server-side code that is the interface into that. You never have an application that communicates directly with your database. Like, it opens up a connection to the database directly on the server. Nor would you want to have anybody who could have that access to that server code, because that would just be awful. So, yeah, let's see. Okay, what would you suggest? Lambda's external library is a bit weird. So I think with Matthew says, I have 7 subs of various lengths on Android. Oh, but you get your first year one. That's awesome. Let's see. Theo says, did you see JetBrains Fleet? If not, check it out. JetBrains Fleet. I use Jet. Might be your next IDE. Oh, hang on a second. Let's have a look. let's have a look here, because I did update all my my JetBrains tools this morning. Well, I mean they're always, I've got the annual subscription, so I've got all the these ones up here. The you know well, the ones I use are Android Studio, AppCode, Data Grip. To be honest with you, I rarely use Data Grip. Like, I always get it thinking if I have to do some SQL Server stuff, because I'm on a Mac and I don't have Management Studio. IntelliJ I use all the time for Android development or Flutter development. Rider I use for Xamarin, and WebStorm I use for web stuff and Node.js stuff. But I don't use any of the Python stuff or any other stuff. So, what is Fleet? Is it language specific? Developing IDEs. Fleet is the uses the IntelliJ code processing engine, distributed IDE. Oh, I know. I did notice that on the stuff that they have the distributed IDE stuff. That was on the latest version of IntelliJ. Collaborate to the maximum. Okay, so it's got all the languages in it. This might not be too bad. Oh, coming soon. Because again, one of the reasons why I use JetBrains at all is just because I have a fairly consistent interface between them. If I use, like, say, AppCode, which is the Objective-C library, or sorry, the whatever, the Xcode equivalent on JetBrains, sometimes it's just easier for me to go through that, the shortcuts and everything like that. And I think Xcode was designed by a drunken, just like someone in a feverish night dreams or whatever. So I sometimes I'll use it, but I still use Xcode for all my packaging and everything like that, just because, it's just easier for me. Like, I trust Xcode is going to work because it's native, but sometimes I'll go into AppCode, do a little bit of tweaking in the languages. So, cool. I'll have to check that out. I didn't even see that announcement come out, and I probably got an email about it. Oops, just what. So what else do we have? Sandra Apsey goes, do you have a script or plugin or virtual assistant to prepare the Google Drive file with all the revenue? It looks handy. No, I have a virtual assistant who does it. That's one of our jobs each day, is to go through and look at AdMob, look at the Google Play, the purchases, and also using I can't remember what the page is, but I have I basically, years ago I recorded a video of it, so she goes through and does all that, and I used to have like all the other ad platforms, but since I just went to AdMom mostly, I think it's become a lot easier. But it's one of those things where I could go, don't tell her, but I could go like weeks without looking at it. But then when I do go back and look at it, it's like, okay, well, yeah. So I wanted to get a script to do it. What have I written scripts to do? I've written scripts that will take reviews using the App Annie API, and it would put them on our website back in the day. And I pretty much removed that since, but that was really useful, just to have all the reviews come in, because it was, it used to be that when you got reviews to the apps, you'd have to go in and look at it. There was no way that they would email you. Now you got the email notifications. It makes things a lot easier. Fami says, just go native. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it is just the case of going native, because I'm getting to that point today, like dealing with the Flutter stuff, where it's just like the kind of thing when you're dealing with like cross-platform. I mean, the cross-platform frameworks are good because it's less work. Like you're focusing on one. Usually I'm focusing on iOS. I work with other developers who focus mainly on Android, and then sometimes we'll have like a little bit of things that might work well for me but not for them. And usually it's like before going live, so let's just check to see if we have any discrepancies on the Android side. Ideally I should probably switch daily between the two of them, but iOS has been easier for me. However, like a good example is on my laptop, I upgraded what was it last week? I got everything working on my laptop. I've got the latest version of Xcode running with Rider for Xamarin, right? So I'm doing all the Xamarin forms, everything's working. And then I wanted to generate some thumbnails for videos, so I installed FFmpeg, and for some reason that moved Xcode Select to select some other location. So now everything stopped working, and I need to fix that before I use a laptop again. which is just it's a pain. Like these kind of things that are dependent on each other, which is one of the reasons why I shied away from which I basically don't want to deal with Ionic anymore, because I'm always running into these issues. Like, this was working before, now why is it not working? Because something on your computer has been updated, right? We got so many things that are dependency on dependency on dependency on dependency, and maybe it is a case of just going native, right? Because I don't know if native developers, like purely native developers, have those kind of issues. I mean, hey Patrick, yo Patrick, how's it going? Oh, I just realized when I'm sitting down, you can see my stomach. All right, Charles. Hey, Charles. How's it going? Hello, Eric. I'm here today. It's really been a while since I catch you live. I know it's been a while since I've done it. It's just been, again, the videos during the week. I haven't been doing. We've been doing a lot of stories lately, and I don't know if you guys notice the YouTube stories that go out. A lot of them are based on older videos, and I feel a bit bad when somebody said, "Hey, I really like the suit you're wearing the other day." I'm like, I was wearing a suit the other day, like for like 2 years ago or something. But so I need to get on my game. And I've been feeling so ill lately. And then also I get these issues where, like today, I tell you what, this computer was about to go through the window today. I'm like, you know what? It's one of those days where nothing's working. I have one of these days where like I start, okay, when this new project, let's do it in Flutter, and I've got all these issues on Flutter for some reason. It's like, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong now? And I'm spending like hours in forums, and I think, you know what? I'm gonna go Xamarin. I'm just gonna like screw it. I'm just gonna do everything in Xamarin. And then even then I get some other issues on that. And there's some times where you just like, yeah. And it's like it's just following that thread through. That's those initial hiccups. Like just this should work, but it isn't. And so, I'm having one of those days. I'm totally rambling today. Totally rambling. Lord, I was born a rambling man. All right, so Mr. Noob says, technology is changing too fast. I agree. I remember trying to build a sample Flutter app from the official GitHub repo and it wasn't building. This is like this is one of the things that's really been frustrating me this week, because I'm thinking, okay, well, you can't use and I think this is why computer books pretty much disappeared, because by the time a book comes out, everything's changed. I think, and you got these huge breaking changes that come out too, like the whole thing with Flutter Flame, which I'm thinking, okay, they're building this framework and they got, and I'm using, so the latest version is whatever, release candidate 18, release candidate 16 has something completely different, and release candidate whatever 12 has something. So it was like a lot of stuff that should compile. So all the tutorials are, they don't really work anymore. It's like these are huge breaking changes, and they're just kind of coming out all the time. And when I think about it, I think about the Angular. When Angular 2 came out, it was a huge, that was a huge change, but apparently it addressed a lot of issues that Angular was having in terms of like refresh rates and everything like that. But it was like, okay, well, all right, cool. Well, we'll just have to learn this then. And then these frameworks are just coming out too quickly. Okay, the nice thing about that though, and I was talking to somebody who's just getting into like a software job about this the other day, is that you can become the expert on that thing if you just like wherever you jump on, you could become that guy. So like not everybody's going to keep up with the latest frameworks on everything. Like if you're going for a computer job, once everything catches up. Like today, just doing some Flutter stuff and using Flutter 1, and I'm like, I really want to upgrade this to Flutter 2, and then as soon as I start doing that, then I have to deal with all the null safety issues, and I'm thinking, geez, there's too much code here to go through and do that. Let me just go roll back to the way it was, and it's just but ultimately, this is one of the things where as software developers, we're just producing too quickly, right? The applications out there are just not not moving fast enough. Mr. New says, do your clients demand any particular technology stack? Almost never, unless they got other developers in it. So if it's like if it's a .NET shop, it might be something like Xamarin or .NET platforms. Sometimes, like we have one that was like a company that had server-side developers in a certain technology, but that doesn't matter because they're writing the API for us. And it was like, okay, that doesn't matter. They could, we just need to make sure that we have that communication going back and forth. which can easily descend into a blame game of, why are we running late? Because, we don't have the API, and there's like, we don't have the whatever. So it's like, sometimes that could become a thing. But most of the time, it's just up to you. Most of the time, the clients, they don't really have one. In fact, it's almost like if somebody comes to you where they have specifically, they know the language. Okay, one of the kind of things that I hate taking on is somebody who's a developer themselves, because, and this might be one of the things I have trouble with hiring developers too, is because they have expectations on how things should be, and basically they just want you to be a code monkey, right? They want to be able to still control everything, but there's certain part of being a software developer. The part of the software development that I enjoy is the creative part, is the finding solutions to things and making them work, which is like, what's the best technology we can use? What's the most efficient way of doing something? And sometimes to have somebody jump in and try to like get involved in it. It's a little bit like if you were the head chef, and all of a sudden the owner of the restaurant, used to be a chef, and he wants to come in and go, I don't like the way you're doing this, whatever. It's like, well, at some point, you need to be able to make, because then what happens is you stop making any decisions on your own. You start to go to them all the time. So you need to be, you're in charge of the project. Like, you're like, basically, like, which direction to go in. If there's anything that you need, like if there's anything that hasn't been decided beforehand, the project shouldn't have been started. So you're the one who pushes everything forward. Again, one of the things that I find difficult working, so especially working with junior developers, is that they don't push the ball forward. And as a professional software developer, sometimes you have to be that one who pushes everything forward, which means sometimes you have to be the annoying person who asks the client, I need a decision on this. I need you to test this. I need you to come back with feedback on this, because everybody's waiting on you, right? I need you to keep, doing this. And they're like, well, and they get a bit wishy-washy about it. And you're like, they're paying you to be the one who gets it done. And if sometimes that means getting feedback from them, sometimes it just means like, making a decision and going off in a certain direction. When I work with a developer who says, should we do it this way, or should we do it this way, or should we do it this way? And you're like, well, does it make a difference? Like, and like every single question comes back, and then they come back and say, well, we've been waiting for you to answer this question about what we should do. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care, if it's something that's functional, like to the application where the client needs to feedback on it, then yes, but otherwise I don't. Most of the time they want someone to build something for them, and they get confused if you ask too many technical questions. Like if I had somebody come to me and ask, they say they want an app, it does X, Y, and Z, and then I'm like, okay, what language do you want this in? And I did used to ask that. What language do you want this in? And they're like, English, right? And it comes into like, and then they have to ask a follow-up question like, what are the pros and cons of each? And then we go into this whole academic thing about, oh, well, this one kind of does this, and this one kind of does this one kind of does this. And you know what? They don't care, right? The one you do the best is probably the best. So, but yeah, I hardly ever have that issue. My ad revenue over the Thanksgiving week went up about 100%, 100 times. Wow, mine didn't. Well, that's excellent, Patrick. Cool. Let's see. Yusuf says, yes, it's actually a plugin for capacitor. Did I miss something here? Okay. Oh, is that Lambda as a plugin for capacitor? Yeah, Apple has loads of work to do on Xcode, but it's Apple, so that's unlikely. Yeah, Apple, they're the ones who for a company that says, we're all into the user interface, we're all into sleek design, we're all into the effortlessness of using our equipment. For developers, screw them, screw the developers. Give them something that's like, where can we put this? I don't know. Let's put it on this tab, like buried down 5 other tabs. Let's see. Mr. Dude says, do you miss your office, like having employees working and just relaxing and watching them work? You know what? I don't miss it at all. Like, because it wasn't like I was ever relaxing. It was like I was still what I was finding was like I still had stuff to do, but then I had other stuff to do too. Like that was kind of my thing, Mr. Noob, was like I wanted to be where I could just do more high level stuff, like give this to a developer and have them work on it, right? And then and then I could just focus on something else, or we do videos or do whatever, and it got difficult, and I wonder. It is so difficult to find good people. And I'm not just talking about software developers. I mean, just good people in general. One person I'd hired, I thought this is an easy job, right? It's just, I just needed a bit of admin stuff done. And they were like, okay, well, and they were like, it was basically somebody I knew. So they're like, kind of like a help me out kind of thing. So, okay. So, came into the office and I'm like, and I would sit down and she'd go like, she would say stuff like, I'm such a slow typist. And I'm like, okay. Like you're like constantly like, and she kept saying, I'm too old to learn this. I think I'm too old to learn this. You're not too old to learn it. Just keep doing it. Like, it was just bizarre. It was bizarre because I'm like, to me, if you sit down and apply yourself, you'll learn it. Even when you get frustrated with stuff, like today with the whole Flutter issues, like sometimes that's just, you come away from that being smarter and stronger because you're basically building your education in that area. If you start a new language or something you're not totally familiar with, you're going to struggle a little bit. But then you get better at it and you're like, I can't believe that 3 weeks ago, I couldn't figure this stuff out. And now it's like just it's so easy, right? But it was like a case like where I would sit down and I'm like, okay, all right, so you good? All right, so I go sit down and he said, oh, I lost the email. What do you mean you lost the email? I lost the email. This is how bad it was. And I just goes how bad. I go, so I have to get up, walk over to the desk, and I go, okay, you went to a different tab. I was like, oh, okay, all right. And I'll go sit back down again. And then, and then the conversations would come up and everything like that. And I'm like, and finally, and then it was just too much. It was too much. And there's certain things I like about just being able to, like, Mr. Noob, there were times where I was in the office and I would think maybe I don't want to go in the office. The office was my sanctuary when it was just me. It was like kind of like, I'll work on stuff. I'll put some music on. Maybe I'll take a little nap if I get tired, whatever. It was just like, it was a place to work and I'd be creative. And then when other people were coming in, you have to it just got more like an office. It got more like work and I didn't like it. And so, and I felt guilty if I didn't come in and all this kind of stuff. So there's certain things where I'm like, I like the fact that I just got to focus on the work that I need to do. I like the fact that the team that I work with, they work from home. And I'm not breathing down their neck about, what are you working on? What time you coming in? Everything like that. Why are you in the bathroom so long? I mean, all the things I hated about about working in an office was happening in my own office. Like, even though nobody was saying anything to me because I was a boss, it was still like, I still felt guilty about it. So I don't miss it at all. Not at all. I like getting up, going to the gym, sitting at the desk here. If my kids live with me, then maybe then having that separate space would be important again. But I don't really need that at the moment. So I like the comfort of where I work. So I don't get interrupted all day. I'm just able to focus on what I'm doing. And again, in the middle of the night, if for whatever reason I'm stressed about something and I can't sleep, I can just come in here and start working on something. And I love that. Theo says, I just started learning Swift UI 6 months ago, and now finding it is pretty cool. Yeah, the Swift UI, does that work on cross-platform? So one of the things, so like I've been doing a lot of, again, the last few years getting into Xamarin, and there's it seems like it's really limited in terms of the UI and stuff you could do. But then every so often I'll see certain applications that I know do use Xamarin, and they'll have these other components in there where I just think, where's that come from? How was that done? For some, there's something I want to have a floating action button where you scroll to the bottom and it expands out to show whatever the title of it, which I know, I think you can do in Flutter, but I'm not quite sure. It's a extended floating action button, which I would love to do that in Xamarin, and it might be possible. I've done a floating action button in Xamarin, which is kind of like taking the pancake view, the pancake view, and basically in an extender and basically kind of mocking it up, but it's not really like a control, like a dedicated control that does that. So it's just Apple, Mac, iPad, iPhone, Apple Watch, and Apple TV. I mean, that's, it's kind of weird. Like when I started doing app development, I only wanted to do Android. I didn't really care about iOS. Like, screw iOS, whatever. I'm an Android person. I like Android apps. And then the developers were like, well, we could do an Apple app for you too. And I was like, oh, sure. But now I'm kind of gone the opposite way, where I've got mostly Apple stuff. And when I work with somebody who, like, one of the problems I have was if I work with a developer who will say, hey, I can work on this for you. I go, okay, all right, cool. Like, and I go, do you have a Mac? Because no, I'm an Android, but it's cross-platform, so it should work. And then they'll work on an application, what'll be in React Native, whatever, and then we get to a point where we go to iOS and certain things are not working, and there's nothing they can do about it because they can't test it. And then then it becomes my problem. And then I got to sit here and spend hours trying to figure out why is what's working on Android not working on iOS. And that's one of the reasons why, if I work with somebody again, they have to have access to an iPhone and a Mac. So, oh my God, I struggle so much. I've got clients that are struggling with finding good developers. I'm finding trouble, finding good developers. And so my latest guy, once he did this, he's got, oh my God. So the first 2 weeks, really good. I said the 2 week trial, everything worked well. And then 2 weeks later, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm really getting on. Okay, cool. And I should have been saying check in every day, check your code in every day. But I was thinking, you know what? I don't want to be a jerk, because I'm always a jerk. Like, so I thought this time I'll be, I got to be a bit more trusting. And then, I said, well, we need to have a demo. And then, can't do this day, whatever. And then finally with this morning demo, and then he's sick. He's sick that day of the demo. Even though we pushed it back, 4 times because of issues that he had. So then he's gone for a week with a fever, and then when he comes back, I'm like, well, you better check that code in. And he checks everything in, and he says he'd been checking everything into Git, but locally. And when he pushes it all, like all of the commits are like within the last 6 hours. So I'm like, like usually if you commit to Git, even if you're locally, you're not pushing the you're not pushing it. When you do push it, it pushes all those commits, so you can see them in GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever you're using. So that was one of the things. And then, so last week we were going to have a demo, but then he's got to get vaccinated, and maybe it's all true. But then, now, today he's not there, and I'm looking at like none of the code he's checked in works, and certain things aren't there and everything, and I'm just like, I'm just so tired. So, sometimes it's hard to find somebody who just, like, and that's the thing, that when the trust is gone with you like when as a developer, you have to make sure that your clients trust you, because once they lose trust in you, then they start to question everything. And I feel that way with this guy, which sounds awful, I think. Mr. Noob says, the digital nomad life is becoming quite popular these days. Yeah, that's definitely the way I want to. I mean, I working from home, I don't consider myself to be a digital nomad. I'm just sort of like a dude who stays in his pajamas too long. But like, yeah, that's the thing. I want to do more. And this is why I'm spoiled by this dual monitor, high powered iMac thing. And I'm trying to, every so often, I'm thinking, okay, I should just like use the MacBook Air and just get used to that more often. And just little things like, having your emulator and have to switch between your emulator and your IDE. And usually that's not so bad, because you do the split screen thing where you have the IDE and the emulator in the same screen, and then just swipe back and forth when you go to the browser or whatever. But it's just, I need to get into that. So get the digital nomad stuff, going. So anyway, so, and Patrick said, Macs in the clouds are being offered by more and more hosting providers now. Yeah, but now you've got the Xcode build and this is one of the things where I haven't really looked into this enough, but I know that you have the Xcode Cloud services from Apple, and I'm wondering if that takes over from that. Yeah, this is how annoying Apple is. Like when we talked about like the Xcode being a bad interface, like they got like for most of my clients, they'll set up as an individual account, right? So which is fine, right? So then I'll say, okay, grant me access to, so that I could go through and upload the code for you. But for some reason, the developer account you can't add people to. So they grant me access as a developer. I can't generate a certificate or developer certificate or anything else. So I have to have somebody who has no technical ability at all and probably doesn't even have a Mac to figure out how they're going to actually, generate a certificate for me. So what I have to do, even though I have all this permission and roles and everything, is where for App Store Connect, I can have access to do everything in App Store Connect, but developer.apple.com, I can't even generate a certificate, right? So I have to log in as them, and I have to do it with them on the phone, so I get dual authentication. So when they get the little code on their phone, they can let me in, and I can go through and generate my provisioning profile, my developer certificate, my provisioning profile, all that stuff, and download them and locally, so that I can actually go to this other thing where I have full permissions for, right? It makes no sense at all, right? That it works that way. So, and if they have like a business account, usually it's not such a big deal, but with the personal accounts, it is. And Apple insists that, they don't want you releasing other people's apps on your account. So that's what I did at the beginning was we'll just release their apps on my account. So that didn't quite work. So let's see. And Mr. Noob says, I'm aware of GitHub Actions. Is it used for app development? I haven't really used it. It's one of these things where that goes into like the continuous integration kind of stuff. Like I know like with stuff like App Center on Azure, you could actually upload it and have it build like as soon as you push the code, right? It could just build it for you and get the continuous integration, which I think probably works really well with the teams. You want to make sure nothing conflicts and everything like that. But for me, it's like I'm always find it just easier just to build locally and upload. I guess the nice thing is that you could have it like run all your unit tests and everything that way too. But yeah, I haven't really seen like if you're doing server development, I think it makes more sense that you'd want to have that. You as soon as you check something in, it gets distributed to your dev or your staging environments. But a lot of times for app development, I guess you could have it like go straight to test flight. But I don't see like to me it doesn't seem like it saves a whole lot of time. Like to have it like as soon as I check it into GitHub, then something else builds it out there, right? It's like, well, I have everything here, I might as well just build it here. So that's always just the way that I thought about it. So anyway, so it looks like we've run out of questions, right? So I think we'll finish the live stream here. I don't know if I'll be doing it next week. I probably will do it next week. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I hope you guys have a great week ahead. Thanks everybody for joining the live stream this week. I know a lot of times it's just we talk about. I think today I've been really, really negative. I have no idea why. I'm really negative about. I think it's because I've just been spending all day looking at output at the build outputs and thinking, okay, now what's not working? And maybe you're right, Fami. Maybe I should just go to go native, but. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great week ahead. Thanks very much for joining the live stream. Thanks for the thumbs up for those guys who've given it. And I hope you have a great week ahead. And I'll talk to you again next time.